Hey there, my name's Mark McCartney and welcome to the What is a Good Life podcast. Over the last 3 years, I've interviewed over 200 people around this question, not to prescribe you with the universal answer, but to help you to find and define your own answer to this question. While I'm also trying to share with you what I perceive to be more genuine expressions of the human experience and indeed more meaningful conversations. Which brings us to this week and the 72nd episode of the What is a Good Life podcast, and I'm delighted to introduce Reuben Christian as our guest. Reuben is an award-winning edutainer, a cocktail of event host, motivational speaker, facilitator, TV presenter, and comedian. He's the founder and facilitator of Dream Rehab, a live show and curriculum that harnesses the power of community to help individuals reach their personal goals. He co-hosts the award-winning What Is This Behaviour podcast, and his work is all about inspiring new possibilities by creating uplifting spaces for people to connect, collaborate, and grow. In this beautiful episode, Reuben shares his journey of feeling true to himself. Whether it's paying attention to what brings fun to his life, embracing responsibility, exploring and excavating in therapy, or following what makes him feel alive and aligned in his work, Reuben highlights several important areas for us to pay attention to in feeling more true to ourselves. We also explore both our experiences in engaging more with our emotions and hence feeling more of life. If your life has lost a sense of feeling, engagement with emotion, fun and experimentation, or a sense that it truly is your life, this conversation will provide you with many more themes and areas to explore further for yourself. While Reuben's openness and willing to explore and experiment will offer you much inspiration on your own path. Look, I took a lot from this conversation. Reuben's openness and authenticity, I think, are greatly refreshing. And he's someone who I've got to know over the last few months who speaks from a real conviction about who they truly are, which I find to be quite rare. So I think you're going to take a lot from this conversation. And if you enjoy this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're on the podcasting platforms, please continue to leave your reviews, as I greatly appreciate your support at this stage of my podcasting journey. And if you'd like to check out more of Reuben's work, whether it's Dream Rehab or the podcasts that I've already mentioned, as well as ways for contacting him, please check out the show notes below, where you can also find details of contacting me, whether it's for individual coaching, executive group coaching, or silent retreats that I'll be putting on later on this year. And also to check out the show's newsletter if you want to check out further clips or indeed the reflections that these conversations have prompted in me. So that's all from me this week. I look forward to carrying on the conversation with you next week. And so without further ado, the 72nd episode of the What is a Good Life podcast. Reuben, thank you very much for joining me today on the What is a Good Life podcast. Since speaking with you a couple of weeks ago, I've had this penciled in my diary and I've been very much looking forward to it. So thank you very much for your time today.
Mate, I am now right back at you, my friend. Like I said before we kicked off, I'm energized, I'm excited, I'm curious. And yeah, I was already laughing this morning before coming on to the show because I just think it's going to be a wholesome conversation and it's going to be honest and probably funny. Knowing what I know of you is probably going to be funny. I think you're a great character, man, and you're funnier than you probably think you are.
Thank you very much.
That's a good man.
I think, I kind of think it's funny. Sometimes it's I think so much about all this reflection stuff and all that, like that I probably lose my humor in it sometimes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally I that resonates a lot, man. So look, as I tend to kick these things off, Reuben, it is with the question of, is there a question you're trying to answer as you move through life?
That's such a great question, man. I've been sitting with that for the last few days. And different answers are coming up at different times, depending on how I feel about my life and in that given moment, right? But the one answer that I think encapsulates all of those questions that were coming up was, does this feel true to who I am right now? And that question has been a life leading question for my entire life, right? And it's taken me, like, that question comes up when I'm navigating internally, like discussions around career direction, relational direction, where I might be spending my time. Does this feel true to me right now? That's my answer.
That's a huge question, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, your question is a huge question, and the answer, which is another question. Yeah, it is a huge question, but I feel for me it keeps the cameras on the inside as opposed to the outside. Do you know what I mean? Because I think
Absolutely.
as I've been growing and evolving, or whatever word I want to use in terms of like my expansion, um, what happens on the inside has been changing, as I make contact with the world. And so I always like to keep that camera on the inside, and stay fluid with whatever the answer might be, and honor what the answer might be.
It doesn't always lead to the easiest or most straightforward situations, does it? Like I don't know. For me, I love that's been a big focus for me over the last maybe 8 to 10 years, I'd say. Um, it's it's crazy though, like how it can lead you to experiences in the short term that where you have to confront things or you can be confronted by life, but overall in the longer term it leads to much more inner harmony or something to that effect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for me, it's obviously opened up more questions, which has actually led to more exploration as opposed to kind of certainty. And through that exploration, I feel I've got closer and closer to who I am and how I want to show up in the world. But if I tried to tell you that I knew, I don't. And so it's an ongoing, do you know what I mean? It's an
Oh yeah, yeah,
ongoing, mate, it's just constant trial and error. Try a thing, check in. Try a thing, check in.
yeah.
That's literally what my life has been. And I think that's how it's always going to be.
Have you been that conscious of it, or have you always been doing that, or has it become more conscious, that process, in the last few years, or how would you describe that?
The one pivotal moment where I remember that being such a powerful question that catalyzed me into a different direction was was when I went to uni, man. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I don't think many people know after uni what they want to do. They haven't even started to work out who they are, yet alone make a big life decision. And so that was how it was like for me. And I remember going to uni, picking earth sciences, and no disrespect to anyone that's doing geography or earth sciences, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was good at that during A levels. And when I got to, the opening lectures of the first year, they said for this entire semester, not term, the whole semester, we're going to be studying precipitation. And I went back to my room and I looked in the mirror and I said, "Nah, we're not, man. We're not studying precipitation. I don't know what we are doing, but we're not doing that." And
Yeah.
so I just said, does this, like, what I now realized was I was questioning myself. Does this feel true to who I am and what I want to do right now? No. What does? I don't know, but let's at least move away from that. And I've kind of got used to. So since then, that question has always been at the fore. And it has really put me into some really tough challenges sometimes where I've had to question myself. Um, yeah, but it's just who I've been for a long time. And I ultimately trust that that question as a guiding question is a healthy, not necessarily an easy, but the healthiest way, that I can stay true to myself while trying to live a half decent life before I die.
But like it's so it's strange when I talked to you last time and you were just so adamant that this is who I am. It was
Right.
it was strange to hear so much conviction in somebody saying that statement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's an element of this life that is greatly underappreciated. Like we're trying to, I don't know, look like we're doing well. We're trying to, show that we're competing with other people or that we're collecting the trinkets along the way, and maybe wondering why we're not feeling a certain something in our lives. And yet, I think what you're touching on here is literally one of the most fundamental pieces. Like, does this feel true to me, or does this feel like it's my life even? Because from what
Mm,
you're saying, it just sounds like such a your feet are dug into the ground. Like, and I don't mean this in a confrontational way, but like there's roots
right.
to it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and you're standing for something that is ultimately just you.
That's really nice to hear reflected back. And I appreciate that. It's also met with a bit of suspicion on my side, because as I'm internalizing that and almost celebrating your reflection back to me, there's a part of me that's saying, "Oh, are you a bit too certain?" Which means, are you a bit too closed to who you could be or how you might evolve?
Mm.
I'm sitting with that live right now, but I don't think that is the case. I think I do feel grounded and rooted in who I am, how I show up, and what I want to offer, simply because I've tried loads and loads of different things, and the data I've got through my lived experience, even felt in my body, is enough data to say, yeah, this is what you're good at, this is what you enjoy doing, and this is what the world gains from you and appreciates. So yeah, I've got enough data to feel grounded in that at the moment. However, though, man, like if that changes and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I've been lying to myself. Actually, this feels more true to who I am right now. It would be odd for me to try to ignore that. And if I did ignore it, I feel that I'll discombobulate inside. It's like, do you know what I mean? Does
Yeah,
that
yeah.
even make sense?
No, that
Yeah.
makes 100% sense, man. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
there. It's to me, it just sounds like you're paying close attention to the felt experience of life, and
That's such a beautiful way to
I
put it, Mark.
don't
There you go.
think, and I love the expression of this as data as well, because it is. It's not
It is,
something you
yeah.
can say. Well, I give my conviction level scores an 8 out of 10 today, or whatever it may be. You feel something, and I think as well. There's like an element of this where we think of it as, it doesn't just have to be the conviction in which we feel something, but when we try and experiment with our lives to do something else, we can get really, and even to be something else, we can get really
Yeah, man.
jarring reactions to that, and it becomes like it becomes almost an affront or something to try to do it another way. Like,
Yeah, yeah. We fall sick,
yeah,
man. Like, you know what I mean? The body gets ill. Um, yeah, that's been my experience personally, but also I've noticed it. And also there is a space for compassion here because I know how hard it is sometimes. There's responsibility and sometimes we're in systems that doesn't let us lean into who we are authentically, or at least it's hard to do that. But what has always been consistent is if I personally haven't, I will feel it either in my mind, in my thoughts, or in my body, which will then just ripple out into life and then into my relationships and communities. And yeah, I don't want them to feel that energy from me that they have felt before, and I know that's on me, and it's not on them. So yeah, I've got enough evidence, lived experience slash data to know when I might need to pivot or when I'm off or what needs attention. But I'm trying, like to getting into spaces like where I met you through kinship and all these other spaces. I'm constantly trying to get in spaces with people that are actively trying to live that way. Yeah, I guess uh, iron sharpens iron.
yeah, yeah,
Is that the saying?
something like that.
Yeah, it almost feels like that. I know this is a hard task, and I just want to be in the space where other people are doing it, so that we can all learn how to better do it and support each other while doing it.
And for you, then, like with this sense of like, does this feel true to who I am? Like, where is that? What's that journey been like for you? Like, where does that lead you, or where is it taking you from and to, and where is it
Oh,
unfolding
mate.
now? Like,
You know what? It's taken a heavy dose of ego at the beginning. Like when I started going on that journey, it was almost like I needed audacity. I needed ego in the petrol tank to shut out everything that everyone was saying or what modernity says we should be doing in order to just drive and try these things out. So it's been a mission that's been driven by, other than that question I talked about, also this idea of follow the fun, move away from the pain, which I know is a very normal and human thing to do, right? It's almost irresponsible to a lot of people, but I guess I was privileged enough to have the chance to do that during uni. And so it was like I'm going to try this. This feels like what I want to do. So it feels fun. When I picture the future, it looks fulfilling. It looks interesting. It looks fun. Yeah. All the rest of that stuff, oh my God, they feel like dead ends. Don't do those. Let me go and do this thing. And I will try that for a little while. And then the feeling would change and I would have a breakdown, or I'd be upset, or be questioning my life and my decisions, probably cry it out alone in my room somewhere, and then try to rework out where I need to pivot. And then a new pivot would come, and energy and excitement would come up for trying that thing. So it was a lot of exploration for me, creatively and professionally, but also obviously internally while I was on that journey. And then I started to pick up that lived experience and that data on actually no, yes, no, yes, which has kind of led me to where I am now. But yeah, I was following the fun and trying to just sprint away from pain. And honestly, Mark, responsibility, which is something now as I do a lot more men's work that I'm contending with. So that almost feels like the shadow side of my journey, right?
Yeah.
If that answer makes sense. My answers sometimes just come out
No,
a little bit flow.
these are the things that usually resonate most with me when people think that they're either when
Okay.
someone says to me they're rambling or they're not making sense. That's usually when they're
Mm.
speaking, maybe to my heart or something like that. With this, Reuben, like what gives you hope, Reuben? What brings you hope?
New ideas of possibility, that always brings me hope, right? New ideas of possibility. Um, and also experiencing other people's humanity through their vulnerability. Those two things give me hope. What the first one is hope that things can change things can change for the better. And that doesn't always necessarily mean, oh, move towards positivity and joy. It might even just be a slight change towards more acceptance about something that is
Yeah.
unchangeable, which, could give you a bit more peace or whatever. So, yeah, new ideas and stories of possibility. That brings me hope. And then the experience in people's humanity through their vulnerability it's been mind blowing for me, especially since 2016 when I first really started my unraveling in therapy and doing a lot of excavation work. Um, and that's hopeful for me because every time I witness that or I feel that, I'm reminded that I am not alone with whatever the hell it is I'm going through. And there is a hope in there. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that community, togetherness, and belonging is, yeah, ultimately what I'm after, even though sometimes I may not know that I am. But that witnessing that, I'm like, not only is it hope, it's relief. It's hope that I'm normal. Do
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Because I think I've battled with quite a harsh inner critic throughout my life, and I still get in the arena with it, or it comes out to play sometimes. So yeah, that's been helpful for me.
This is I love this idea of like people's shared humanity or vulnerability gives me hope. Um,
Does it for
yeah,
you?
because it the first thing that came to my mind, when you use the word acceptance too, it for me anyway, it reduces the sense or the intensity of the sense that so much needs to change. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, beautifully
It kind of
articulated. Yep, yep.
it pulls a weight off life. Like, ah, shit, like all this stuff that I'm saying that has to change. If everyone's experiencing this, do I just need to
Mm,
start accepting that this is part of the human experience?
yeah, bro. I can't, mate. Just pause for a second. Do you mind
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
just speak on that? It comes up for me so regularly, and I don't know if you experience this, right? I am regularly reminded, and I even tell people that we're all going through something. But when I am in a funk, I can't access the respite in that knowing because I'm in a
Mm.
funk. No matter how deeply I know that to be true, Is that your experience? Does that make sense to you?
It's it definitely. Well, I guess my relationship with that is, though, I don't think I admitted any insecurities or discomfort, probably until my early 30s. And
Wow.
that's an extreme statement, but generally, I'd
Mm,
say it's not wildly inaccurate. Do you know what I mean? So,
wow.
um, yeah, I think it would have been more a case that I deprived myself of being able to even see that, and then it flipped on its head where I think I started flexing my vulnerability. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, of like, and I think there was a kind of a disingenuous tone to my vulnerability as well. Like, I was kind of taking
Right.
pride in
Right.
the fact that I was a man and I could share certain things. Um, and then I think it kind of
Mm,
settled down in a place where, um, now it feels like a healthy relationship with vulnerability, and sharing certain things, like in a way that feels like it's not performative, it's just a genuine authentic expression of whatever I'm experiencing. And yeah,
yeah.
in that, I think there's something that's happened along the way where I also have this I feel like I'm living life, but I also simultaneously have a wider lens of like, it's kind of mad that we exist at all. No, but like for real, like
Yeah.
like just thinking of
Yeah.
like just different theories, like even our thoughts, like there could be a bit of God floating around there. Do we ever have free will?
Mm,
Jesus, what's this quantum mechanics thing? Like that's pretty mental. Then there's just human relationships and beautiful things that happen. There's beauty sometimes in sadness, and then there's all of these things that are kind of in my field of thought or feeling sometimes, that I think that's I don't take life as, no matter what the feeling is, I don't take life as, I don't feel there's much permanence to it. So I think there's always a gap for, more recently in the last 5 years or so, there's always a space for me to go, even in really happy phases, like, cool, this is the experience, but it's going to change. And not in a negative, like
mm,
pessimistic way, but oh yeah, this is just life right now. Like tomorrow I could wake up feeling amazing, I could wake up feeling a bit shit. That's just the way life goes sometimes. And so I think I at this point in my life, I don't feel so disconnected from, I haven't experienced funks for a while where I'm unaware of the possibility, or the possibility of like a moment of beauty or respite from it, I guess.
mm. When you are feeling the highs, I just want to just ask you a question on the
Mm,
highs, right? When you are feeling the highs, the wins, the joys, you said that there is also what you also hold the idea that everything is in flux and it will
yeah.
change, right? And that this won't sustain because this is life. Are you able though, while holding that idea, are you able to really intensely feel the joys and the highs and the wins? Can you feel them? Or does that other knowing almost turn the volume down on that experience a little
No,
bit?
the way I experience it is, like if you were to ask me for a live feed of my feelings in an hour, you'd be getting a lot of different answers, right? Like, how are you feeling now? How are you feeling now?
Right.
And so I have an experience at the moment where I think I feel things really intensely. Like,
Mm,
maybe I shared this with you the last time I spoke, but I had an experience where I got up early. I was working in a different room in the house, or in the apartment, and I heard my baby just suddenly making these baby sounds at 7 a.m. or something like this. I wander over, see her on the bed, my missus on the bed, and then my little dog at my jumped up and was resting by my missus's feet. All three creatures, yes, we're all creatures. Don't think I'm not disrespecting my missus. All three creatures just have their own capacity in themselves to make my heart feel very full, like very effortlessly. Do
love
you know
that.
what I mean?
I
All
love that.
three
Yeah,
combined,
yeah, yeah.
like I remember turning around to my missus and go, "Fucking hell!" Like my heart is just full. And I said, it's good to keep this in mind when, I may have stresses about work, or how do I figure out this phase that I'm in, like all of these things. all of them are presently true. Like it's not that see, this is, I think, and it's a good thing you asked me the question, because maybe this answers it. None of it makes everything else go away, but they're all being experienced simultaneously. So even
Right.
in the
Right.
moment, like there can be both stress and joy coexisting, and they don't cancel each other out. It's not
Right.
like I come away from that experience and going, stress no longer exists about a proposal or something that I'm looking to create. Because my heart's full, they're both there. I think that probably sums it up better.
I love that, man. That sounds like such a beautifully integrated and I guess mature way to experience life. And that hasn't been the case for a lot of people I know, me included, for a long time, man. I think I've always lived in quite a binary way, and a lot of people I know, especially cisgendered men that I grew up with, right? Like when they start to quote unquote become men, at a certain age, right? The socialization kicks in and whatnot. And what I've found is that there is this stoic idea, and I think it's actually the wrong way of looking at, or a wrong way of looking at stoicism, or one way that I don't feel is right. But it's this notion that to be stoic, or to be a man, is just to feel
Mm.
less. So when we're feeling low, we don't even feel that because we block that shit out. So we're not even feeling it too tough. We're kind of like a rock and we're just moving, which also blocks out the highs. And there almost used to be like a celebration from the men in my circles for
Yeah.
maintaining that middle of the line kind of energy. And that was me as well. Like I put on that way of being in order to, I guess, navigate the entertainment industry as a brown man in a predominantly white man's world. And it was helpful because I'll be like, yeah, don't care about that loss, going to get up, go again. But then when I had those kind of like big unraveling moments back in 2016, and I started to do a little bit more introspection in safe spaces with professional mirrors, like a therapist or in group work or whatever, I started to realize, but that way of being was a protective mechanism. And now, not only has it stopped me from feeling the deep intensity of the lows, but I don't get any of this good shit
Yeah.
at the top. I'm almost moving through life like this robot kind of zombie that can't feel much on either end of the spectrum.
Oh,
So that's why I asked you, and the fact that you can hold both of those dualities of experience is such a great place to be, man. I'm happy for you. I'm a lot nearer that. Actually, I'm in that space now in comparison to, let's say, 5, 6 years ago. But boy, it is hard now that I'm feeling
yeah,
everything
yeah.
in that spectrum. I realize that I feel it all quite
Oh,
intensely as well. And I realize that I am actually quite a highly sensitive
yeah.
person. Or I'm a normal person and everyone else is just in zombie mode. I don't know.
So, oh man, like sometimes I feel like I'm an emotional wreck. Like,
Yeah,
do you know,
bro,
like,
me too,
and
man.
I,
And of course, the old me questions the
yeah, yeah,
new me, and the new me saying, "Why didn't you just be like the
yeah.
old me?" And there's this just horrible conversation that goes on
Nah,
sometimes.
so
It's hard
yeah.
feeling, I
Oh,
think,
it,
for
it
me
is, but I
anyway.
think it's if I were to think of even the last couple of years, though, I think that that's a practice in of itself. That
Mm,
then, even as I said, like when I first came to even the idea of expressing vulnerability or something, I was all over the map. Like, zero to just too much. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
here are all the things that I'm comfortable expressing now. When you're just like, yeah, but I don't have a relationship with this person, or I don't have like a. Do you get me? Like, I don't have we haven't created the foundation to hold what I may be sharing. That kind of over vulnerability, I think. But with this feeling stuff, I remember being kind of overwhelmed for a few years, where I was just like, wow, like I've gone from, like, just by observing what I'm experiencing, I've gone from like feeling like I absolutely know what I want to do to my life, to having no clue, to like wondering what I'm all about, to just having a deep sense of contentment, all within like 5 minutes or something. And I'm just like, what is
bloody hell,
going
yeah,
on? Like,
yeah,
and
yeah.
what I perceive from that, or what I guess I can reflect on that is, I think it just, what you said there. like we seem to have identified this narrow lane of experience, of acceptable experience. And if you're outside of that lane, maybe you're considered too emotional, too loud, too something, right? But it's
Yeah,
become
yeah,
so normal. And I found this on both extremes of it. I see the reactions I get from people because by and large, I enjoy my life, right? Like I kind of revel in it a bit, but I'll be comfortable telling people if they say, how you doing? I'll be like, I'm fucking amazing today. And that almost gets like a, oh really? Like a,
yeah, yeah.
what has you so
Same here,
amazing?
man. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then on the flip side, if someone asks me how you doing, I'm like, oh man, I'm just feeling a bit pissed off or a bit angry today. And then that gets a bit of a jarring reaction. And so I
mm,
think part of this process, and I'm not trying to say yours is mine, but there's probably some overlap in what we're talking about here. I think it is just opening ourselves up to the full spectrum. And
yeah,
that takes a little while
yeah,
because we've been so
yeah, man.
used to, and so not in some malevolent way that there's these external forces that are telling us to only feel something. And there's an accountability in that too for each individual. But it's been so socialized that like anything outside of just saying I'm all right or pretty good or things are a little bit hard, but I'll get on with it. I can't complain. Anything outside of that isn't seen as very ordinary, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. And when I even realized that that was a thing, I was shocked. I was so shocked, you know? And as I have been peeling back the layers, um, and not totally getting rid of the armor, but creating a zip so I can take it off once in a while and put it on. That's what the conversation in therapy was about, actually. I've like created this suit which has served me for a long time. The arrows are hitting and it's just falling off and it's been great because I can move forward. But now I can't feel anything. I can't feel much. So rather than getting rid of it, which is what I tried to do, nuke it, typical, not toxic, but kind of like,
Yeah.
man, nuke it kind of vibes. I had like ongoing conversations with my therapist and people within my community, and they're like, nah, man, like respect the armor, like honor the armor because it has served you for a
Right.
long time. You know, don't just try to nuke it. It's your friend. Like, how can you integrate it? How can you be with it? How can you know when to put it on, when to tighten it up, when to take it off? And that's been an ongoing lesson for me. I'm a lot better than I have been before. But yeah, back to our point on feeling, it has been tricky. It has been tricky. I had a conversation recently with my friend who's a somatic practitioner. Um, and I said, man, like, for some odd reason, I'm just having like these big cries and these big breakdowns every 2 weeks on the
Mm.
clock, every 2 weeks, when that just feels misplaced. It feels like everything that I want and need, I am working towards and I'm even getting. What on earth is happening to me? I don't know who I am, what I'm becoming. Yeah, am I emotional wreck? Will this just be omnipresent in my life, etc.? I had all these questions. And what she reflected back was that now that I've opened, maybe we can call it Pandora's box, in order to feel a lot of suppressed stuff, which has been stuffed down from
Yeah,
years
yeah.
ago, maybe an old breakup or an old resentment or whatever, that's still swirling around in the pot. And they're all starting to come up and out as I kind of lift this lid. That was both consoling and so
Yeah.
irritating. It was consoling because I knew, okay, I'm not going mad. This is a natural process. As I start to feel all the stuff that's in the backlog wants some stage time, and I'm feeling it randomly. But again, it's jarring because wow, like how much is still in there,
Oh,
man? Like how much is still in there? When's it gonna come out? When am I just gonna have a random crying breakdown when I think everything's cool? But I guess this is midlife for us that are intentionally trying to do some work here on growth and healing, isn't it?
this though I think this is a hugely important part, I think, for anyone's journey. Now, look, I'm not a psychologist or something like this, but I pay attention to this stuff a lot. Like, and I have many conversations around this. And a commonality that I've found is, and it's something that irks me a little bit about the linear way in which we interpret or project or hope a journey will be. I think there's
Mm,
a if you want a life with more adventure, or if you want a life where you feel alive or you're feeling your emotions, this is part of it, right? Like, do you know what I
It's
mean?
no
Like,
way
you
around
are
it.
like, you don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
how
yeah.
this is going to go, and once again, like, I think you've been pretty good with this too. Like, I'm not suggesting that everyone just suddenly goes explore themselves. Like, like, you
Yeah.
mentioned, like, the necessity or the feeling to do this in 2016 was probably, yeah, it was probably just a year earlier. Yeah, it was 2015, I think, for me, that I first saw a therapist. So both fairly similar
Mm.
timing. Like, I would never recommend anyone does anything to be like, do what you feel you need to do at any time. But this is,
Yeah.
I don't think, how about this for you? Like, I don't think necessarily, at least initially, engaging with my emotions so much it doesn't make me very predictable to myself, and it doesn't make me very efficient or something like that. Like, there's a period where things can just get a little bit, like, things can get quite uncertain. And I think it's the real beauty then is when we're exposed to as much uncertainty as we are, then life becomes a lot easier, I would say, insofar as life is uncertain. The reality of life is there's so much uncertainty. It's so transient. It's so, like, temporary, that in getting used to even these fluctuations of my own emotions, like, we were talking about, like, wow, within 5 minutes I could feel this. It makes me feel far more at ease just in the world and with uncertainty. So I think there is a considerable payoff for this. But there's also, like, there's a price to pay at the start where life just doesn't feel like anything that I knew it to be. Now, I think if we stay the course, there's something really beautiful to be discovered with that. But, like, man, like, I was hoping, like, when I first saw a therapist, I was asking her questions all the time, like, so when am I going to be done? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I went in. Yeah, I went in there saying, "What's the package deal? Six sessions and healing at the end." Man,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
beautiful things, though, that come with that then lead to, I think, and you're touching on it too, like the sense of, like, exploration that comes into our life, even the sense of what's possible, because what you were saying earlier, the sense of possibility arises is just the sense that things can change. And
Mm,
even if it's us acknowledging that, Jesus, we're a little bit more emotional than we used to be, or whatever it may be, that's a change, right? And therefore, for me, a lot of hope comes from this individual journey, because then I'm like, there's change happening here, like, and that shifts my perspective on a lot of things in life as well.
yeah. Um, Man, my relationship to the unknown and to uncertainty has been an interesting one because I really did think I had a great relationship with it, you know? Um, being an artist type, being a freelancer my entire working life, other than Saturday jobs at retail, all I've done is exist in the unknown and create opportunities that would open new doors, right? So when people that have been working a 9 to 5 for 10 years say, "Matt, how the hell do you do it?" I'm like, "What do you mean? This is life. Like, I'm so used to it." But then on the flip side, that uncertainty, when it's reflected inside on, oh wow, is this who I am or who I thought I was? Uncertainty within that realm is so new, and it's still quite new. Yeah, and it's taken me a little while longer to be or feel safe or present or grounded in that uncertainty. I think uncertainty turns up in different realms and different kind of areas of our life, and some are easier to have a strong relationship with than others. But you are right. I remember,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
just to throw in a point, if you don't mind, here on this. um I was mentoring on a course called Beyond, which is helping people find a strategy for their next move in life, right? It's quite a comprehensive, I think it was a 3 months course. And one of the exercises was, who are your icons? Like, who are the people that you admire and that you would like to be like or emulate? Find them, list, I don't know, let's say 10, and then let's get them down to their top 3. So we got them down to their top 3. And I was doing the exercise and the course at the same time. And one of mine
Right.
was Esther Perel, just because of the amazing work she does, right? And then one of the tasks was go and find out who your icons were, which I think is a
Right.
really great question, because we hold people up in high regard, but we sometimes forget that they have their icons, you know? And so I've done some research on it. And as far as I was aware, it was someone that informed a lot of her practice. I can't remember this person's name. He's a psychologist, but quite big in his field at the time, but not as mainstream. And I went and watched the video of his. And I remember a beautiful point. I remember him saying that the job of a therapist, regardless of what the patient brings to the space, is to just help them make peace with and become more comfortable with the fact that all there is in this life
Yeah.
is the unknown. And that is always so that no matter what we think, we know we're actually constantly in flux and dealing with the unknown in relationships, in work. The moment we get up, we think we know we're going to go to bed at 8 p.m. Anything can happen. But making peace with that regularly, that takes a lot of work, man, because our brain doesn't want to admit that, right? It wants to feel safe. So it's a constant, I think,
But I
it's
think
constant work.
there's something lovely in that though as well, and that it kind of if we can acknowledge that, it also gives us there's also a freedom of possibility within what we are at any point in time. Like we're because if
Mm,
everything is unknown and uncertain to some degree, like or if there is unknown elements within us, then that there's still like a hope for possibility or change again, if you know what I mean. Which I really I think it's kind of an
yeah.
inherent part of a creative process, or of us just expressing or being whatever it is we are. There's something kind of nice to know that, like, well, of course, I think on some fundamental level, there's parts of us that remain very similar as we go through life. But it's also, I don't know, that the way you frame that gives me a lot of sense of freedom or possibility just in what I am or what I'll be in 10 years time or whatever it may be. And even just like
Mm, yeah.
yeah, just like a that, you know, if we're struggling with something right now or whatever it may be, it's not to give a silver lining and say, hey, turn that frown upside down or something silly like that, but you know, like just that
Yeah.
change is coming,
Yeah.
like that's inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is cycles. Everything is seasonal. That's true. You know what? I think there are some people that can be quite energized by that. And I think there's other people that can be quite motivated and
Yeah.
scared about that. Um, yeah, that's what I've noticed.
And but I guess, like, you know, each very much each to their own with all of this stuff, right? Like it's I don't like I used to hold certain views, like, people should find their purpose, or they should do this, and they should, you know, go out on their
Mm,
own or do something. Like I didn't hold them very strongly, but maybe for short little periods of time. And like everyone has their own path. Like, you know, just while I think that, let's say, the absolute idea of 9 to 5 for with the way it's adopted, I don't think is very healthy. But there's lots of people that really really suits and works for, and that they should absolutely not
totally,
do something
totally.
other than that. And do you know, like, because
Yeah,
there's people in my life, when we talk
totally,
about life
man.
decisions, and I tell them what's been happening in my life the last few years, I get a very clear sense that if they live my life, they may have a heart attack, and if I live their life, I might be depressed. And it's not to
Yeah,
say either one is correct. It's just I'm glad that I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm glad they're doing what they're doing. If you know what I mean. So, like, I think
yeah.
ultimately it's suffering or discomfort that brings people to a lot of these things, right? Like it's a and then at
Mm.
that point there may be an unavoidable unraveling or revealing of who you are. And then when you get close enough to that, then you don't have a choice what to do again, right? Because you're just feeling it too strongly when you're
Yeah,
going against that.
yeah, yeah. That's always been the case for me, man. Crisis has catalyzed exploration, which has ultimately led to some sort of growth, even though I hated it along the way. And and I think that will forever be part of my journey and a lot of people's journey, man. Like, what else
Yeah.
is there, bro?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, just curious, Ruben, as to how you're, when you've mentioned this idea of possibility, and I know what you were saying before,
Mm-hmm.
even what was the motivation then in going out and trying to help other people realize a sense of a dream or reconnecting with that? Like, what was the point at which that became important for you?
You know what? That's a great question. I'm redoing my website at the moment, and so I'm rethinking my about page and where I am right now. And that process has been interesting because I've been looking over pictures. I've been chatting to people that I've been growing with to just kind of ask them like how they've experienced me. And what I think the answer to that question is, I think that this has always been a part of who I am. I was just able to pinpoint it and communicate it a bit clearer as I've got older. And what I mean by that, I think since I was younger, whether it's primary school or whether it's secondary school or college, I've always been quite connected socially to groups. Like I've always been quite sociable, right? And I've always been the one that's trying to organize things and get people to go out together and try to create moments of joy. And I've always been the person that, for whatever reason, and I don't know why this is in me, but I've always been the person that has tried to help someone move towards growth or a better quality of life, if especially if they're feeling down. I don't know why. Maybe it's religion that has taught that. Maybe my granddad was very much like that. You know, he was a community leader. Maybe it's genetically handed down. I can't pinpoint it, but I know it's always been present throughout my life when I really sit back and look at the things I've doing. And I think once I've realized that, like the majority of the projects that have energized me and that I've felt alive and that I felt easy and have met the world um, in a positive way has been these projects that had collective expansion
Right.
baked into them in some sort of way. So yeah, I think it's always been there. And once I noticed that, I was like, yeah, this is who I am. This is, I mean, if I try to not be this, it feels odd. And when I am being like this, it feels natural and it works. So yeah, I've just decided to just honor that part of me a little bit more and I guess build my career and even my creative projects around it. And Dream Rehab is one of those offshoots of that commitment towards that way of being, I guess.
I don't know. I just think it's a beautiful idea, though. Like, because I think there are a number of people out there that just, we talked about it the last time, just of how brittle somebody's initial idea, or fragile, I think it can be when we're first exploring or putting our ideas out into the world as if this is something I want to do.
Mm,
And I definitely think
yeah.
that there's this kind of space for people to be supported through the idea is in living out a dream, or in
Mm,
materializing or manifesting something like that. I think it's a very
yeah.
underappreciated part of the journey, because until you go through it yourself, you just think that people that start stuff, they just
Mm,
do it, and it's because yeah,
yeah.
they're
Like they're
chosen, or they're
chosen.
single
They're
minded, or they're this and
naturally.
that. But there's lots of people that I've met along the way that have stunning success at this point, that tell me just how fucking like fragile or vulnerable they were. Do you know what I mean? Like, but intensely
Yeah,
vulnerable.
man.
Like, and
Yeah.
so I think sometimes when people think that if they're not this single-minded bull, that they're not cut out for this, I just think they need the right support.
Yeah, yeah. Bro, that's all my experience has been. Like when, when you kind of like draw the curtain, is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
what you reveal what's truly happening behind the scenes? Everyone. And I've interviewed hundreds of people on different podcasts over the years. I've hosted shows, I've interviewed these people live. I've had big chats one-on-one with people and that's everyone's experience. Um, so it's just so crazy that for whatever reason, I mean, I understand the reason because people just put their best foot forward when they're
yeah,
publicly projecting, right? That the brain's just going to get all this data and it's going to make a snapshot and it's going to say everyone's cool and they're smashing it and I'm
yeah.
effed. but that isn't the truth. And what Dream Rehab does, and I've kind of engineered that into the process, is before we try to help each other grow, the first thing we're going to do is understand that everyone in this room, whether you're new to your journey or you've been on it for ages and you're award winning, is that everyone is up against some shit right now. And I think when we do that, the whole room gets humanized, right? And there's no hierarchy. That's just gone. Like, it's just a room of human beings that have committed to trying to do something that they want to do. And once we get to that level, then we can talk about how we can help each other out. But we don't get into rehab, which is forward movement, forward pathways, solutions, until we've done some excavation and we've humanized and we've realized that everyone in the room is going through the same thing. And that's been just so powerful for me to witness, and really transformational for me to witness for myself and for everyone that steps in the space. That is it's almost addictive. Like, I'm like, how can I not be creating more of these spaces for us?
That's absolutely gorgeous. The sense of, it's almost like when we humanize ourselves like that and connect from that space, we're no longer obsessed with kind of competing or projecting a certain something. And I don't know, it brings us into community with other people, and then to really tap into a support, not that kind of begrudging, oh, I'm so happy for you, kind of through clenched teeth, if you know what I mean. So I think it's I really think it's wonderful stuff.
Thanks, man. I think so as well. Like, it's my baby. I absolutely love it. I just love it. I just really, really like it. I've done loads of projects over the years and I've made loads of different things, but and I've jumped ship, right? But this thing that I have made, I I just want to just do more of it in spaces, you know, like how my work would change and my offerings might change. I don't know, but right now, going back to what you said at the beginning, like, what feels true to me right now? Is this true to me right now? And it, for like 1,000% is, and I would just like more people to experience it. They'll get People will come in the space and they'll leave getting something that they didn't know they needed. And that's, yeah, that's magical to witness.
And I guess, like, that's even when you were talking about opening Pandora's box and you just don't know what's coming out, like, I think it's
Yeah.
you know, as much as we try to make this game of not a game, but this, like, I don't know, well-being or mental health stuff or whatever it is, we make it a very, like, it can be very internally facing sometimes. And it can, even if you're doing meditation by yourself or just even with a therapist or whatever, um there's something there's something about, like, group spaces like you're referring to here, that they'll help you find something that you're not even looking for, or you, as you say, you didn't even realize you
Yeah, man.
needed. And that, like, there's something, I don't know, there's something, just, that's the beauty of groups almost, or that's the beauty of groups when we're in a shared space of humanity with each other. And it will always
Yeah.
there will always be something that you can surprise yourself with, that you wouldn't have been able to discover probably by yourself without that new experience teaching you something new about yourself.
Mate. Yeah. Yeah. 100 that, my friend. 100, 100 that. And I know for me, the things I create are the things that
Yeah.
I need or needed. That's been the leading kind of reason why I create things, right? And I know for me that I've isolated myself for a long time, following that old school man code, just do it yourself, put the blinkers on, stop when you're dead, all that bullshit. And it's just led to so much pain and suffering in my life that I just done a full 180 pendulum swing. And I'm like, hell no. Like, I do need to spend time with
Yeah.
myself, and I always will, because I'm naturally quite an introspective person, but I'm just re-engineering my life to move towards more interdependence as a way of being, over hyper
Oh man,
independence. And Dream Rehab is an offshoot from that, you know.
man, that resonates 100%. Like, I think for the first while,
Yeah,
even on whatever, like, this path that I've been on, when I stepped away from finance, like I told you before, there's initially I wanted to do it all by myself, and in the last year or so, I'm just coming back to the idea, like, oh man, I want to collaborate. I want to, you know,
Mate,
you know what I
trust
mean?
me,
Like, and
all the
I want
time.
to
Yeah,
connect. Yeah, yeah,
it's more
completely. Like, I
fun
want
as
to,
well.
yeah, and I
You're
want to connect
sharing it,
with
man.
groups, and I want to, I want to share in the victory with somebody. I want to share in the heartache with somebody of like, oh, this didn't work out or whatever it may be. And yeah, man, so that absolutely resonates with, I guess, like an evolution to, or a
Yeah.
change to how I'm perceiving the world as well. Look, Reuben, just all the
Mm,
things you've been kind of talking about in this conversation, whether it's from, just knowing what's true to you and really that being a guiding force, or getting closer to feeling that and that being a guiding force in your life, to the ideas of like possibility, accountability as well is obviously very important. This sense of community, fun, introspection, a sense of supporting people is obviously very important, and also a sense of creativity. And then, you know, just this, I guess, even developing this whole emotional range that we've been talking about is a bit of a shared experience as well.
yeah.
I think you've been dropping so many important facets of life for people to be considering. Just really curious for you to answer the question of what is a good life for you, Ruben?
Also, all of those things right back at you, bro. Like this has been an exchange, right? So yeah, thank you as well for sharing and showing up as you have. What is a good life for me? I think I will bring back in my initial quote. A good life for me at the moment has, this is how I'm going to answer it, right? Is to try to be as true to myself while in relationship with others. Yeah, I think trying to be as true to myself. Does this feel true to me whilst being in relationship with others a lot more? That's how I'll answer that question right now.
That encapsulates so much. Like, if someone were to reflect on that, um, and I think it's a fundamental importance in my life as well. And while I think we're always in flux, like, and I'm not trying to be the same person to everyone, I want that same feeling, kind of alignment or truth to
Mm,
myself in any particular moment, because I think we have no idea how much it's hurting us. And I'm not trying to say this to turn that negative or something, but I think we have no idea how much it hurts us when we're not doing that. I don't think we give anywhere near enough attention to it.
yeah. I mean, it almost makes me feel like that thing is about connection to self and others, really. Maybe that's what I'm talking about here. Connection to self and connection to others is really important for me. And I think for a lot of people, truer connection to self and deeper connection to others, man. Yeah.
I'll just thank you so much for joining me today, man. I really enjoyed speaking with you, as I have a
Yeah.
tendency of doing with you. So really, really appreciate your time, man. Really, really love the journey you're on,
Yeah.
and
Thank you
really
for
loved all
having
that
me
you've
on.
shared, man. So much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you. Sending love, my friends. Big love, big love. I've really enjoyed it.